After Asta's daring announcement in the previous chapter, where he said he would surpass the Wizard King, and a short break from Shonen Jump, Black Clover's latest chapter is finally here. And as usual, Tabata delivered with an action-packed and shocking chapter. So without further ado, let's get into what looks to be a devastating chapter for poor old Asta. Before getting into the fight between Lucius and Asta, we get to know a little bit more about Asta and Libei's latest form, which I must say, I am in love with. As we already know, the duo's powerful but short-span double union, which lasts a total of 5 minutes, releases a large amount of anti-magic power. Although helpful in most cases, this massive release of energy is what limits Asta and Libei's transformation to such a short time. To make up for this, the duo have created a partial usage form of double union. Though it is not completely brand new, this upgrade you could say comes with a new look and 10 minutes of fight time. This partial usage works by limiting the amount of anti-magic that is being let out by concentrating their magic on a single point. But it does make you wonder, if over a year of training has only accomplished an additional 5 minutes of the union, what did Noct go through to gain mastery with not 1, but 4 devils? We've seen some bits and pieces, but I hope that one day we get to hear Noct's full story outside of his history with Yami. But anyways, let's get into some actual fighting between Lucius and Asta. Following his first attack in chapter 333, Asta lunges at Lucius with Demon Slasher, the katana that Asta received from Captain Yami. However, no matter how fast his attacks are, Asta's attack just won't connect with his opponent, as Lucius continuously uses his time magic to rewind time on himself and essentially teleport to his last location. Meaning, on top of the ability to literally control time and manipulate gravity, Lucius can also teleport. Things aren't looking so good for Asta here. With that said, Asta has one thing that can counter Lucius's powers, and it is the main reason the villain wishes to dispose of him in the first place: anti-magic. After having a flurry of chronostasis spells launched at him, Asta tells Sister Lily to run before swiftly negating all the bubbles of magic in front of him with his spell-neutralizing sword, Demon Destroyer. While Asta is fighting perhaps the most important fight of his life, he is also trying his best to defend everyone and avoid casualties. And this can be seen when he clears falling debris and tells nearby citizens to evacuate immediately. While this goes on, Lucius once again muses on about how Asta is truly an annoyance to his perfect world, as he comes in close and attempts an attack where he touches his opponent. But Asta isn't having any of it, as he pulls out Demon Slasher, only for the hit to be avoided once more. After this exchange, the villain concludes that magical attacks simply won't work on Asta and Libei, and states that the only way around the duo's anti-magic is physical attacks. Remarkably enough, whatever Lucius was planning when he reached out towards Asta didn't end up working due to the anti-magic flowing throughout him. That makes sense, but what doesn't is the attack itself. From what we have seen from Julius, the two souls don't have an attack with time magic that involves touching the other person. Which can only mean one thing: Lucius was just attempting to use his second unknown magic type. Now back during chapter 333, we predicted that due to the magical nature of his siblings and his grand plan, Lucius most likely has soul magic or some sort of magic involving the soul. And now taking a brief sneak peek ahead into the chapter, it looks as if Lucius does end up having that power again in a devastating way. And best believe that we cannot wait to get into all of that, but before we do, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for some plot armor today. Jumping back into the chapter, we get to see firsthand Lucius' absurd physical strength as he monster smashes his fist into a nearby building in an attempt to hit Asta. The blow, quite literally, blows the roof off of a small house and sends debris everywhere. With all the fighting and destruction going on, it makes us wonder, where on earth are the other magical knights? We know Asta and Lucius haven't been fighting that long since the hero's 10-minute time limit hasn't run out yet, but still, from the mayhem that has broken out, it is a tad bit strange that no one has arrived on the scene as of yet. Especially Yami, since he can sense ki, and likely would have sensed Lucius' strange ki the minute he arrived, much like Asta. I believe it's safe to say that Lucius hasn't defeated everyone else in the castle, seeing as how 8 out of the 9 captains were present, but who knows, maybe he could have. For now, I believe it is most plausible that Lucius has some sort of chronostasis spell placed on the more powerful of the mages present, so that they cannot interfere with his clearing of the flaw that is Asta. Realizing that Lucius is attempting to switch to hand-to-hand combat just like Lucifero had before, Asta prepares himself for a counterattack, stating that he and Libei are much stronger than they were back then. And what do you know, Asta actually manages to land a small attack. He tries to follow that up with an air slash from Demon Slasher, but Lucius takes no time to teleport himself away. This doesn't discourage the hero in the slightest, as he continues to rush forward, this time with Demon Destroyer. And seemingly, he manages to land another hit, or at least come very close as feathers from Lucius' bold cape begins to fly off. Oddly enough, Lucius doesn't teleport away from this hit, which brings up the question of limits. Julius had quite a few when it came to his usage of Astaroth's time magic, so how freely can Lucius use it? It seems that we won't need an answer to that question because right as he pulls away from Asta, Lucius summons his Spade Kingdom Grimoire and begins to transform. And so I guess the time for time magic is over. Now engulfed by a bright light, Lucius tells Asta once more that he is the one threat that will threaten his peaceful world. But as long as he is there, Lucius will not allow him to. Perhaps all those years of Julius fronting their shared body did have some effect on Lucius because he is sounding rather Wizard King-like right about now. Again monologuing, Lucius explains that he was born into a family of devil hosts, but by purifying the devil's power he was able to learn magic that brings sacred power to mankind. Behold, the image of a true human. Now equipped with 3 sets of wings, antlers akin to a deer's, which could be an inspiration behind Julius's former guild, the Aqua Deer, a circle of sunlight or a halo covering his back, and a crown of sorts, Lucius looks almost like an angel. Pretty off-brand for a devil host, but wow does he look majestic. Once again, Asta is at a loss for words. The key he senses from Lucius's true human form, or what many fans have dubbed his angel form, is neither like that of a human nor a devil. Could this be a foreshadowing of angels existing in the Black Clover world? Whatever the case, Asta still has a fight to finish, but while he was staring in awe, he seems to have lost track of Lucius and his teleportations. However, he quickly finds the villain standing behind him and with Sister Lily in hand. And here we receive confirmation on Lucius's magic type, soul magic. As he explains himself, his magic allows him to play around with or transform the soul of those he touches, therefore making his magic type very similar to the curse technique of Mahito from Jujutsu Kaisen. This explanation clears up the attack that he attempted on Asta earlier. Now putting a finger to Sister Lily's head, he tells Asta that the soul is the source of a human's life, mind, and magic. Meanwhile, I doubt Asta is taking in anything that Lucius is telling him, as the hero is too busy planning his next move. He ponders on using his fastest sword, Demon Dweller, a sword that won't hit Sister Lily with anti-magic since that particular sword can only absorb spells and send them back. The only problem is that an attack with Demon Dweller will still cut through like a normal sword, injuring the nun. The only option in this instance is an air slash with Demon Slasher, which won't hurt Sister Lily seeing as how its attacks will never hurt those that Asta loves. The only problem with this is that an attack with this sword will be too slow to reach in time. With no possible options, Asta stands there and pleads with Lucius to stop, but the villain just keeps on going, telling the hero that he will show him a truly happy human. And here is where things get crazy. Right in front of Asta, Lucius uses his soul magic to alter Lily's soul into that of a true human, or so he says. As can be seen, when comparing her form to Lucius's true human body, there are a few key differences. For starters, Lily only has 1 set of wings. Instead of deer antlers, she has something more akin to curved goat horns. And lastly, rather than a giant circle of light behind her, she has a much smaller halo right above her head. Compared to Lucius, she looks much more like a typical angel. Perhaps each person's true human form differs from each other's, although Lucius, in accordance to his plan, may simply just be a cut above the rest. Donning her new appearance, Lily stands over a visibly shaken up Asta and tells him, "For the sake of world peace, die." Now clearly mimicking Lucius and his sentiment towards Asta and Libe, it makes you wonder, is his form truly the true human form he says it is, or is it just a sick creation of his own imagination that he's deluded himself into believing? If he were truly trying to enhance humanity and bring about peace and equality, then there would be no need to inject Lily with this way of thinking, but rather just leave her to her own free will and thoughts. Once again, Lucius is shown to be very hypocritical towards his own plans and approach to them. But could it be that this isn't entirely Lucius showing his hypocrisy, but rather Astaroth and his true intentions leaking through his host without the villain noticing? Whatever the case, both the heroes within the Black Clover world and we readers will have to question it another time. Because after Lily's devastating statement, Lucius uses the opportunity to deliver what looks to be a fatal blow going right across Asta's chest. With his blood flailing all over the place, Asta begins to fall backwards through the air as Lucius hovers triumphantly beside his new fellow, true human Lily. As the chapter closes out, Lucius says that Asta simply cannot beat him at his current state. And with the words, "Farewell flaw of the world," the chapter ends. As usual, Tabata leaves us with more questions than answers. We now know that Lucius does indeed have soul magic thanks to his Spade Kingdom Grimoire. However, this still leaves Julius's magic type up in the air. As we know, the coverless Grimoire is what gives the 2 souls their time magic, but that magic comes from Astaroth via Devil Union, leaving us to wonder what magic Julius has. That is, if the poor soul is even alive. Speaking of, this cliffhanger of an ending leaves Asta's fate up in the air. Even if he survives that slash, what about a drop from that height? And regarding the true human form, could the revelation of this form mean that Kira is still alive somewhere with a transformed soul and an angelic body? I'm sure that the questions will continue to pile up, but unfortunately we won't get answers of any sort until next week's chapter. Until then, however, be sure to drop some of your own theories down below. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.